Welcome back. We're taking some calls, and we're going to start with Bernie, who's calling us from Potter Hollow, New York, and a new listener, and we're so glad you called. Bernie, how can we help you today?
I said earlier, I 4 or 5 years ago, I had a bit of a breakdown, and I ain't been right since. I've been hospitalized 5 times on medication. I don't know who I am or what I'm doing anymore, and I don't want to go back in the hospital.
I'm so sorry.
They don't do nothing but medicate you.
Have you been diagnosed with anything, Bernie? Have they given you an official diagnosis?
Everything. PTSD, manic depressant, bipolar, OCD. Every time I've been to a different hospital or doctor, they give me a different diagnosis.
That's got to be so frustrating. Well, I'm glad you called today. Sherri or Dr. Amen, how would you like to help Bernie?
Well, hey, Bernie, let me start off with a couple of questions. So was this something that just kind of overshadowed your life like 5 years ago? Or was this something that you struggled with growing up?
Came down on me like a ton of bricks. 5 years ago.
Interesting. Was there something that happened right before, like a loss, injury, something that happened either physically or emotionally before everything started to unravel?
A bunch of stuff was going on. I put an addition on my house that I didn't need to do. I lost $200,000 in the house I bought a couple years back in 2007. My job situation was changing at work, and my father was walking around with compression stockings, and kind of I'm realizing that my father's getting older. I'm going to lose him.
Wow.
And everything all at once started happening.
Yeah.
And I just took off my tool belt one day and told my wife, I said, I can't do this anymore. And 3 weeks later, I found myself getting help at a clinic.
Well, my heart breaks for you because it does feel...
Yeah, I kind of wish I didn't put my name out there with
That's okay.
with my address.
You know what? That won't know. We won't. That'll be confidential. That's not going to go anywhere, and I can let them know. I'll do that on the break, just so you feel very safe.
Well, isn't this live?
No, we're recording it actually. So
yeah, but you're all we have is your first name. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody knows Bernie from Potter Hollow, who's messed up.
Oh, okay. All right. Gosh, I'm sorry that has become a label and your identity when really you had some really messed up things happen to you. It's not who you are.
Yeah.
It's actually what happened, like a landslide.
I got to get my head together. I got 10 kids and 9 grandchildren, and my parents are still alive, and I got a wife and a daughter to take care of, you know?
Yeah, and I can tell you're a really good man. I honestly can sense you're a really good man that had some very, very difficult things happen. And it's interesting that it happened while you were putting the addition on. Were you painting? Just asking some specific questions. Were you painting?
No, I don't know. It just, I was working. I don't know what I was doing, but I just couldn't do it anymore. I just took off my tool belt, and then I started pacing, and I couldn't stop pacing. Anxiety was through the roof, and I was out of work for 3.5 months.
Yeah.
And then
well, and there's a
went
lot.
back to work.
There's a lot, Bernie, that goes on in the brain when these events take place, and it sounds like
I didn't sleep for a month straight.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't.
I have had others that I've worked with, Bernie, like yourself, and it can feel like a mystery, like how everything just kind of cracked open, and yet.
Well, it's torment.
Yeah.
It's torment.
Yeah.
Every day is. Today is what is it, like 2:00? I've been in bed all day.
Yeah.
So
somebody's missing something.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear the alphabet soup of psychiatry, OCD, PTSD, ADD, bipolar, depression, it's like we see this all the time. And it means somebody's missing something. So, Bernie, it's not for a lack of trying to get better, but you don't want to go back to inpatient because that didn't really fix it before.
Nope.
And I would want to look at your brain to go, what are we missing? So just like Sherri said, it's sort of a mystery that needs to be put together. And on the surface, you can go, it's this or that circumstance, but you've been dealing with this or that circumstance your whole life, and it didn't put you in bed. So what's new, what's different from, things like an infection to head injury to, as Becky mentioned earlier in the show, is this an early form of memory problems that's freaking your brain out? I would look at it first, and that's just my bias. I'd look at it. It's like, well, how's his brain?
Right.
He's struggling, and given the fact that the medication...
I really don't want to live anymore,
Right.
Yeah,
I don't really want to live anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore.
But Bernie,
right. But there's another choice besides checking out of life, which is checking your brain.
Mm-hmm.
I remember.
Where do we go to do that?
Bernie, where do you live, Bernie?
I live
He's
in
in
the
New York.
boonies.
Oh,
New York.
Yeah. So New York, you've got a center there in New York, right?
I have a center in Manhattan. So that would be the first thing I'd do, because how do you know unless you look?
What's a center?
So Amen Clinics, Amen like the last word in a prayer, clinics.com. And the Canadian Association of Nuclear Medicine just came out with new procedure guidelines for SPECT. That's the brain imaging study we do. And resistant psychiatric disorders, that's what you have, was one of the major indications. So that'd be the first thing I'd do.
Right. Well, and Bernie, I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you in the fact that you just mentioned your whole family and how important they are to you. It is worth doing whatever you can to find an answer in the times when you're not in crisis. And I think that's the challenge, because we get to a place where crisis overtakes us and then we end up in inpatient. And like you said, Dr. Amen, a lot of times it just is like a stabilization, but it's really not a
solution long term.
Exactly. It's like, what are we going to do with the next step? And so we're going to connect you to some help in your area, Bernie, but I also want to encourage you to check out Dr. Amen's clinic and begin the process of, instead of keeping the crisis down, let's find out what is happening so that you can live a long life and enjoy your family, because that is so important to you.
And you know what I love? I love about you, Dr. Amen, in your clinics. Bernie is a normal person, a normal client that you have. I mean, Bernie's story is not unique to you guys, because a lot of people will try multiple things, and I can just hear it on Bernie's voice. He's the 5 hospitalizations, and you just are so at loss. But I can think of so many patients I saw with you, Dr. Amen, that it felt like it was their last straw. And actually, they went through the program, and what felt like their last straw was the beginning of a new path. And I know that's going to happen for Bernie. And once you see your brain, you can figure out what's going on. Like, I am expecting him to have that Diamond Plus pattern. I mean, I could be wrong, and that can be diagnosed as 5 or like alphabet soup, like you said, and that gives someone no direction as far as treatment.
At some point I should write a book called "You Are My Last Hope," because when I used to hear that, it used to freak me out. It's like, that's a lot of pressure. But that's what we hear over and over and over again.
I know.
You are our last hope.
Yep.
And it's 6 months, 85% of our patients are resistant psychiatric patients or better.
Yep.
So, Bernie, there's a lot of hope, but I don't think anybody's really gotten to the root of the problem, and it's not going to be found in an alphabet soup.
That's right.
It's not going to be found in, you have OCD, because you had already been fixed.
Right.
if that was the issue. There's something more, and don't hurt yourself.
That's right.
Because if you do, you just gift your children a way that grown-ups solve problems. And I'm not okay with that. I've seen the fallout from that way too often. So it's not about you, make it about them, and get the help you need. I hope we can help. I would send him my book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life.
Okay, that's a great one.
I know you guys have that. It's a great one to start with.
I agree. I will be praying for you too, Bernie. We know that there is hope.